as a theoretically we can give as a show thing. So what is MID server? MID server is nothing but so so MID server. So what is we will call it as a mid server in the ServiceNow terminology. I'm sorry, mid server. What is MID server? MID server is nothing but so where so management so MID server will be used to in the service now to integrate. If you want to do integration or anything, we have to do the MID server. MID server is nothing but management and instrumentation integration and discovery. Discovery. That's it's a definition, and it's a completely a Java application. It's a completely a Java application. So which will runs on your local network. So that means what here? It's a completely a Java application which will be runs in your our local network. Java application and which will runs in local network in your local network. So because for the mid server, I'm just we can show you theoretically. Just give me. I'm just downloading this. Just give a minute. I will have one PDF. I can open this one. I can show you. So just give me a minute. I will stop recording. I'm sorry. If you want to do the mid server, so this is the mid server how it's work. A mid server is nothing but a management instrumentation discovery, which is a MID server will called as a. It's a completely a Java application that runs on a server on your local network. That means it will be working in your complete in the your local network and it will be managed by you. And also this MID server facilitate the communication and the data movement between a single service to instance to the external application data service. That means if your the data is moving from ServiceNow to any third party tool or any other ServiceNow instance, so we it will give the facilities nothing but it will give provide a secure gateway or secure thing from this which will provide the without any data hacking or data any issues it will help you to the one. So generally, so the mid server is useful for what it will contains. So mid server helps you to control and serve secure how ServiceNow communication in your organization system, especially those behind a firewall. That means fire. So that means this MID servers will be used to used for control and secure the ServiceNow communicate with the. That means whenever we are integrating with the or we are fetching a data or we are communicating with the ServiceNow with anyone we can use the one. So there are the four ways we can use it. First one is the integration, such as LDAP, JDBC, and SOAP REST based integrations to the service system and our internet. Internet, sorry. Orchestration is nothing but enabling the orchestration with other systems via workflow activities and the integration spoke. So from that workflow, we can add a orchestration activities and or if you want we can use the integration of from that we can use the and third one discovery is nothing but discover it will find the discover the systems of our traditional CA discovery or support the discovery related service mapping, which means if you want to use the discovery module the MID server is 100% mandatory, or if you want to use the orchestration this MID server I'm sorry is a 100% mandatory for the same thing. And and also attach a script file, which means MID server files that can be used to communicate with the target device. That means if you want to you can write a script like a PowerShell or JavaScript or any other script which was related to the system, we can configure for the same thing here. That is the basic use. So generally the mid server will be used in the integration, and that means if you want to perform any REST base or SOAP base or LDAP or JDBC, so where we can provide the thing one. And if or else if you are doing any orchestration by using workflow activities or any integration spokes, we can use the same thing this one. And third one the discovery, if you want to find any discovery for the traditional CAs and or other any other thing we can use the service mapping for the same thing. So that is the one. And next one, attach script files. That means if you want to write any script files, you want to execute it so that we can do for the same steps for the here, like PowerShell scripts or this one. So this is the mid server is used. Whenever if you're using something anyone, we have to perform some what you called best practices. The best practices is the first one deploy on a Windows server. That means so we can deploy this one in the Windows if you want to get server and Linux also. But here, so for see there is some limitation in the Linux server. A Windows MID server can perform discovery and automation both on Windows, but on the Unix and Linux. But Unix can, but a Linux mid server can perform only operations in Unix, which means whenever if you are deploying in a Windows server by using the Windows MID server which you are deployed, we can perform the discovery and the automation both in the Windows and the Linux. But a Linux server can only perform operations in Unix only. That means the Linux only operate in the Unix only. We can do it. So that's the automation. We cannot do it, and take each MID server with a single use. That means so if you want to do automation, you can use one MID server. If you want to do discovery, you can use MID server. If you want to do orchestration, you can do the one MID server. Why? Because if something is going wrong with the MID server, only that particular service will affect. Or else, if you are using all the services by using a single MID server, what it will happen is it will be removed, it will be sorry, it will be affect all the one or maybe the network traffic will be increased so that we will not face a problem for the same thing here. And next one, place MID server close, that is networking to the internal resources, their communication with the improve as the one. That means wherever we have the internal resources, their communication, that means the network wise, for example, if it is a discovery module we can use the place this server near to the discovery, or if it is a orchestration we can do for the orchestration server where it was near to it, so that the speed of the one will be increased, the performance will automatically increase it. And also, if you want to, the next one is a cluster wise. Cluster wise is nothing but, so the cluster wise when set up in a clustered group, service now automatically balance load on the discovery across the different MID server and that act as a failover when even each other if the mid server is going on. For example, if you configure this, clustering is nothing but which is a Windows concept where all the servers we can make it as a one cluster so that we can add to increase the performance. So here, so if for example service now is automatically balancing the load on discovery across the different MID server and they act as a failovers, that if one means that means if all the servers, if you're configuring a one cluster, so what happened if one mid server is going wrong, remaining mid server will work as a backup as well as a failure, so that the service will not be the business will not be impact or the flow will not be impact. Only the then whoever working on the troubleshooting that issue, they can use the same thing here. And when setting this, also consider having the MID server pair with the same cluster placed in a different geographic location to support a disaster recovery. So the disaster recovery is nothing but whenever if something is going wrong, what we have to do for a same thing. So that means whenever if you are making this cluster, you have to, the service now mid server pair is same than the cluster page even it is in the different geographic location. So that means if MID server is here, if you are configuring the cluster in a different location, you have to check this scenario if both in same location, so it will be easy for the system so to identify or to act as a failure. This is the basic thing we can do it. And what is mid server, how it will work in service now. So mid server runs a Windows service or a Unix daemon within your organization network behind the firewall, and it is completely controlled by your organization with local configuration file, which means whenever if you use the mid server, it should be where you can install in, it should be a Windows service or it should be a Unix platform within the organization. So behind the firewall, and it is which was completely controlled by the organization and the local configuration file. So which means the network team or it was completely controlled by the not by service now this MID servers what we have configured. So it will be completely we can with the same thing. And next one, it initiate the communication with the service instance via mid server external communication ECC channel. Mid server SCC channel is nothing but if you open this one, oh my god, it will do different. Oh, 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 oh. Mm, mm, mm. That's okay. So mid server external mid server is a queue is a connection point between the instance and the mid server. The ECC queue is nothing but it's a connection between the instance and the mid server. Jobs that are mid server done will be handled by the heap. So here, I'm sorry, we just go back and how it will works. That was of ECC queue, and a mid server can subscribe to the asynchronous message bus, which notify the mid server if the there is one. That means whenever if a job is running here, what happened? The mid server will be what we can see. So this asynchronous message bus, which we'll call as AMB, notifies the mid server stating that if there are jobs in the ECC queue. So it will inform that there is some jobs is running at one. The mid server also polls the ECC queue on a regular interval defined in the property mid poll time. Default is every 40 seconds. If you want to, we can customize it as per our requirement. The ServiceNow instance never initiate communication with the one. That means the ServiceNow will never initiate the communication with the mid server. Only we have to we have to write a things to initiate the communication. And if the job exists ECC queue for that mid server, so it is the set is it will be working for the same thing, and the mid server does the work that request, so it will work for the same thing here. And the mid server reports the findings the job back to the ECC queue. So which means the mid server will be used to, it will check, we have a property called mid.poll.type. It will runs on every 40 seconds on out of the box. So if the system is done, what we have to do is so it will check every 40 seconds any job is there. If any job is there, it is going to perform. And if it is mid server will be request for the perform tool, and mid server will reporting the find and will back to the queue. So see, this is the end user network storage. This one, find the from its server it will come to firewall. Firewall will also will block it. If you want, we can enable it, and the ICC queue for here. And here, this is the basic thing how we can configure. If you want to, you can see this is the how you can install a mid server. So if you want to, you can install a mid server MID server. I'm just going to here. See, this is the mid server. If you want to, we can install it whatever you want it. I'm just going to here. It's a 32-bit right now. Sorry, 64-bit we have right now. It was earlier, it was not there. If you want to, we can install it mid server and we can configure it. So let me, it will do it. And this is the basics. These are the what it called. So what was the best practices whenever if you are working this one, we have to follow the same. We have already configured it. This is the product document, and maybe I can share you this document later, so you can observe it on. So this is the installation how we can do it. Let me download this one and we can see the one. So if you want to, you can see these are the already have the uh, mid server. So if any mid server issues is done, right now we don't have any mid server, so we cannot if you want to configure here, just click on new. We can write what is the mid server name, what was the status here, and what was the time zone it was, and what is the purpose we have written it. And if you are writing, for example, test, it was done. So right now it was unresolved is 0. So what is the mid server result, what is the configuration parameter, what was the application it will support, IP ranges, capabilities including cluster, extend context and logs if any, threads if you want to, statistics it was agent logs and agent files. And if you want any property, we can administer host services. If you have any, we can configure the same thing here. So right now it was still it is downloading. But this mid servers, if you're working on a specifically in a particular model, which is a what you called a dev, integration or in a discovery, we can use the same thing. So mostly will be configured by the different. And if you want to upgrade, so if the version is upgrade, automatically the mid server also files also will upgrade. So these are the properties. See midserver.sss.usnc. So which means midserver property allow the administrator to configure a mid server for the default behavior. So that means which mid server we have to provide the which one, we can ask the same thing. And if you want to write any script includes like whatever you have written as scripts for resolver IP range is nothing but what was the IP ranges we have to configure it. And the script files, if you want any script file to run a mid server we can use this one. And script includes for the mid server we can use the same thing here. And clusters, if you have any clusters we can write the same thing here. Jar files, what was the security policy, and snmb and privilege command. So whatever we had we can do it the same thing here. If you have any deployment request we can write it. Or else mid server profiles, what is a profile we have to configure. These are all things we can configure here. If you want to do, for example, if you go to the ldap, ldap is used to whenever if you are looking the data from the system. If you are configuring ldap server, so it is always asking the mid server. If you go to the create a new server ldap, so it is the one, it is asking the mid server. If I open this one, this is the, what is the mid server? I think right now it was not there. But if you want to do any configuration, it should be the ldap server. This ldap will be used to fetch the data from the active directory. Will be used for the active directory where we can configure the same thing here. So let it be installed. So, but if you want, but in the local machine, we can, it has some limitation. So we cannot execute this LDAP server in a very high thing. Only the thing is where we can configure on a system and a local server, we can do it. So we just download that. We have downloaded that one. We have to set up a wizard. Okay, we'll do it. See what I'm saying? This package requires a minimum OS version, Windows 2012 or greater. So that's a server OS. But here we are working in a client OS, so we cannot go for it. That's one it was showing. That's a basic thing how we can do it. Later you can check this document and I will share this document. From that you can check all the stuff. This is the mid server. I hope you got it. Any confusion? This is the basics. Fine. So this is how we will configure the